Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for our second episode of Interoperability Unlocked. If you missed us 2 weeks ago for our sort of debut, this is just a chance for Liz, our Director of Product, and myself, Marketing Manager, to kind of dive into all things interop and health data. So for our second episode, we're super excited to have a special guest. We have Stephanie Broderick from Clinical Architecture with us. Stephanie, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Courtney. I'm really excited to be here. Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Broderick, and I am responsible for strategic partnerships at Clinical Architecture. Also do some provider business development. If you haven't heard of Clinical Architecture, we are a healthcare data quality and interoperability company. We work across the industry with health systems, health information exchange, payers, life science, et cetera. And a big part of what we do is we help organizations make sense out of their very, very messy, inconsistent data, so it can be trusted and used for patient care. So really excited to be here and excited to be working with CommonWell Health Alliance.
Yeah, we're so happy you're here. Welcome.
Thank you. So if you caught us at HIMSS, or you've seen some maybe social posts before or after kind of teasing, one of the big things that we debuted at HIMSS this year was the new CommonWell Marketplace. And what that is really a platform designed to kind of connect different healthcare providers with new solutions from our members to really enhance interoperability and improve patient care. We really want it to be kind of a one-stop shop for new technologies and services, really to empower organizations to optimize really nationwide health data exchange. And with that, that's why we're so excited to have Stephanie here with Clinical Architecture, as they were sort of our first pilot with the marketplace. So Liz, let's dive in and ask Stephanie all the things.
Yeah. So I want to kind of take it back several years back. I mean, Clinical Architecture has been a member of CommonWell for a long time, many, many years. We've been talking about data quality and data usability for many, many years. So let's just kind of take it back. When we started talking about the marketplace, why was that something that was important for you, for Clinical Architecture to evaluate? How did it become a priority for your organization to take a look at participating in that sort of venture with us?
Yeah, thanks, Liz. That's a really, really great question. As you said, we've been a proud member of CommonWell Health Alliance, and actually I was just looking at our agreement. So it's actually been 8 years. So we've been around for a long time. I remember all the meetings back at Cerner. I remember when Jitten was running things, and we would have the question, the dialogue around, is there something that we could do to help with uplifting the quality of the data? And I don't think the market was ready for it. And so, I really, really commend CommonWell Health Alliance because you are really the first QHIN to be willing to go where the other QHINs haven't been willing to go, and to be willing to open up the envelope and try to make the experience better. And so when Paul reached out to us, we were just so excited. We've been such a strong supporter of what you all are trying to do. We know that exchange of data is incredibly important for having comprehensive patient data, but sometimes comprehensive doesn't necessarily mean good. And so we're really excited to be able to bring our capabilities and combine them with the capabilities of CommonWell Health Alliance and LK to try to take what is now this massive amount of data that's being exchanged and really try to make it more usable and more consumable for the recipient of that data.
Yeah, I love that. I would underline, highlight in bold colors, the massive amount of data that is moving. CommonWell has been moving data for over a decade, and the scale of that has obviously increased dramatically, especially with our partnerships with external frameworks like Care Quality and TEFCA. And that's fantastic. And we always tell people we're the movers of the data. Mm-hmm. We're the pipes, right? We're the water main, if you will, but we're not the kitchen faucet. And And we certainly aren't like the reverse osmosis filtering system if we want to go, into that layer. So I think this is super important. And I would, continue to highlight the significance, not just of the clinical architecture solution, which I do think is incredible. And we're going to dig into that a little bit more, but just, people taking a really hard look at the data that they put in, the data that they use, the quality of that data, the consistency, the accuracy, because it matters. And when we start using that sort of data at scale, we want it to be good. So when you think about our members, are the end users ultimately, because our members are normally like the tech vendors, right? But the end users who see this data come into their systems, like what are some of the challenges? What are some of like the stats that you can share with us to help tell the story of the why? Why is this so important?
Yeah, absolutely. So clinical architecture, we're actually in our third year of an annual data quality survey. And looking at, what people have to say about their own data, only 30% of our respondents felt like they have high quality data. But when they talk about the data that they receive externally, it's only 12%. So there is a huge gap in trust of the data, right? So we can put in these pipes, we can put in these super networks, but if the data isn't clean, if the data isn't usable, if the data isn't trusted, it's not going to be used. And then you're going to have an adoption problem. And so I think that's kind of where we're at right now, right?
It is.
I shared at HIMSS a story that I heard from Laura McCrary at Conza, and I was stunned because she was talking about a phone call that she got from a physician where he had been delivered a 270 page document or series of documents about one of his patients, and his response was, "What am I supposed to do with this? I have 5 minutes." And so it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack.
Can you read a book?
Right.
An entire book, in 3 to 5 minutes? Probably not.
Yeah. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to apply our capabilities of being able to take in different patient messages, HL7, CCDA, FHIR, to be able to consolidate that information into a single output, CCDA or FHIR, to be able to normalize the data and align the data so that there's consistency of the data, which is incredibly important, especially as it moves towards the physician-facing applications, right, for display. And then being able to deduplicate the data, right? So, when a QN is going out, they're doing this wide sweep record locator, bring me back everything that you have on John Smith, and it can be a ton of data. And so being able to, and a lot of duplication. And so, our hope is to be able to streamline it, make it more usable, make it more consumable by the people downstream. In terms of the things that, are causing issues with data, there are a lot that, there are syntactic issues. So you've got different versions and formats, different sections or segments, incompatible data types. Then you have semantic issues where people are using local codes or uncoded data, or they're using incomplete or outdated code sets, standard codes with invalid descriptions, incorrect or missing code systems, missing required data, invalid data types. Clinical architecture did an initiative with ASTP ONC where we evaluated over 1 billion labs in the United States for a congressional report that they were writing. And we were looking at the data in relation to US CDI version 3, and 68%, only 68% of the data had valid loin codes.
Oh my gosh.
Let me make sure that I get this right. 66% of quantitative lab result units, only 66% of quantitative lab units were UCOM compliant, and only 2% of the qualitative results were coded to SNOMED. So, US CDI version 3 is coming up. and the industry, and we looked across a lot of different providers of lab information. So we got a ways to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of wild. When we think about system to system interoperability and ingesting data and, sort of automating the incorporation of that data into, if I'm a provider, like my record, it's kind of scary to think about, just automatically incorporating that in when the quality is so inconsistent. And I think, to one of the points that you made, I think it leads to, a distrust. And that's obviously something that is very important to us, is trust, not just in the organizations and making sure that everyone is following the rules on the up and up, all that good stuff, but that I can trust the data that's moving, because otherwise, why are we doing this? Right. So
Yeah.
I guess tell me, a little bit more about what is unique about this marketplace from your experience. I know that you've done integrations like this kind of in multiple different places, and you have a lot of experience in this. Whereas for us, right, we're new into this API marketplace type of space, and opening up a little bit to having these additional value add vendors come on board. So what stood out to you about this?
Yeah. Well, a number of things. Number one, you're first. So kudos to you guys for having the, having the willingness to open up your platform to provide additional value to your members. And you guys did an amazing job of putting together the marketplace in a really thoughtful way to make it so that as a vendor, it's very, very easy for us to onboard our solution into your service provider, LK, and the architecture that they put in place. It was very, very thoughtfully created so that we were able to get it stood up really, really fast. And we can expand. And so, we have other capabilities that we're hoping to bring to bear in the future. But also for your clients, it is a really, really easy onboarding process for them, right? There's no code involved for them. They basically are able to leverage what's already been put in place for their regular receipt of patient data from CommonWell Health Alliance. So it literally becomes a license and go type solution, which makes it a win for everybody. And it's really extensible, right? So it's going to be really easy for you guys to onboard additional capabilities to bring those best of breed solutions to your member base.
Yeah, absolutely. That was really important to me. As anybody who knows me knows, I have a background in the EHR space. So I know that getting, EHR vendors to prioritize modification of this type, from their side would be really difficult. So it was really important to me to have this be a configuration on our side and the CommonWell side to enable a given provider organization to start to utilize the services of clinical architecture. So we're really excited. We're doing beta testing now, which I love.
And there's already been a good amount of interest.
Yeah, there absolutely has been. And it's funny because, I talk to new members, prospective members, people interested in interoperability all the time, every day. And I always get questions about the data. And a lot of it is like, well, CommonWell doesn't look at the data. We specifically, in our agreements, we don't look at the clinical data. We don't have data access rights. But anecdotally, I can tell you sort of what happens. And I can also tell you that because we don't have data rights, we don't touch the data. So you get what you get, type of thing. And it's up to you to figure out what to do with it. And just be warned, you're probably you don't need to so much worry about, will I find data for my patient? You need to be worried about, there's going to be a lot of data that you're going to find, and how are you going to meaningfully use that? And so giving this solution, offering this solution as an add-on service, easy configuration on the provider organization side, I think it's going to be super awesome to see. And I hope that, we can continue to see growth and even like talk about this again in a year and see what's changed. But yeah, what do you think, Courtney?
Totally agree. And Liz, you were kind of dabbling in this, but what does that mean? Or like, what's the value of these solutions because they're already CommonWell connected? And how does that impact the actual quality of the data and the usability of it for our members?
So what we're doing right now, and Stephanie already alluded to this, but I'll say it again. This is sort of our, first step into this API integration, and there's a lot of room for growth. This very first step is we're going to, clinical architecture is going to sit in the middle, and we're going to pass them all of the information that we get for a given query. And they're going to very quickly go through all of that and produce one single additional document that's going to be a clean view of everything that's been incorporated from the 50 documents that we pulled, normalized, standardized, deduped. So then it'll return that 51st document back to the provider organization that they can then choose to, have the other 50 as a reference if they want, but really utilize that one single document with all of the data. We know it's structured correctly. We know it's deduped. I mean, when you think about if you are a primary care provider and you have a patient that goes into the emergency department, gets admitted to inpatient, has a stay, et cetera, you got to think about there is not just one document from that encounter, right? There are multiple encounters of that patient throughout their stay in an inpatient setting. And you're going to see a number of clinical documents be produced. All of those clinical documents are going to have medications. They're all going to have problems. Like the sections are by and large going to be the same over and over and over again. And there's going to be some net new data, but for the most part, it's going to be very repetitive. And clinical architecture sees all of that, dedupes, and then goes, here's your one medication list. You don't need to have 30 medication lists that may or may not be standardized to the correct RX norm codes. Here's the one. So, I mean, I think for provider organizations, that's going to be huge value add. And obviously, we're listening. We're going to continue to listen to the needs of the members and their clients and figure out, okay, this is step one. What works from here? What can we add? Because clinical architecture and others, right, have more products available than just this. So really excited about what's to come.
Yeah. And along that line, I mean, we had a lot of discussions at HIMSS around the new PICI framework, which is the open source framework for data scoring that we are working on with the PICI Alliance and Levitt Partners. And we have commercialized that into a product that we're hoping that there is a market for through the marketplace to be able to score data at the source, because ultimately it's going to take the source improving the quality of the data to really make meaningful forward progress.
I think that's so true. We worked with the VA a couple of years ago on sort of a similar process of scoring like my own data. Like, how do I understand my data that I'm creating? And I know that, I can't recall any hard statistics from that time. That was several years ago. And a lot of information has gone in since then. But what I do remember is sort of the astonishment of organizations when they got scored to see, oh, wow, I'm really not doing as well as I maybe thought that I was. So that's interesting. I mean, we've talked about something like that here at CommonWell as well for organizations and vendors to sort of get a sense of like, how well am I doing? Not to shame anyone, but information is power, information is knowledge, and we can use that to advance, right?
Well, Charlie Harp, our CEO, he always says you can't fix what you can't measure.
No, absolutely.
And so, it creates the ability to measure and then to go back and again, make changes at the source so that the data that's flowing out of that source is better for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think from here, we're really looking at obviously expanding the marketplace. I think there's obviously a lot of opportunities, data quality, usability, and beyond that I think could be added. I sort of like to speculate about what cool new feature value add type things. But I think more than anything, and I'm going to steal this from our executive director and give him the credit for this statement, but I'm going to use it anyway. We want to see what's out there. We're not going to say necessarily like, okay, we're looking for this type of partner, this type of partner. What's out there in the market? We know from attending shows like Vive, HIMSS, and other places, there are so many cool solutions that exist that could support, more usability of the data, adding certain, supplemental data, authorization type. Like there's a lot of things that could be incorporated here. So we're really excited to see how that could evolve.
Yeah.
Any last comments? Yeah.
Well, I definitely like some of the stuff that you guys are thinking about related to augmenting data, because I think that there are a lot of data sets that would be helpful to get that more 360-degree view of patients. Social determinants of health is one of those. And interestingly, as social determinants of health comes up as the poorest quality data that we have in healthcare from our survey. And there are some great sources out there. And so if you can create an elegant solution where that data gets married up to the patient as it's going through the pipes and then gets augmented, I think that's really, really useful. And I agree with you. I think there are a lot of solutions out there like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. We're so grateful for all the work you've put into this, for joining us, for the continual support. And we look forward to where this continues to grow, and we look forward to having you back here, and we can provide some updates at that time. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll talk soon. Thanks.
All right.
All right. So before we wrap, let's talk a little bit about healthcare in the news. So we had some different topics, I think, Courtney, that we were going to bring up, but there's one that just came out yesterday. There's a Politico article that came out yesterday about, rumors who's going to be the new national coordinator for ONC or ASTP, if you like. I personally think it's going to go back to being called ONC, but what do I know? And there's two names in this article, which I thought was quite interesting. One is Ryan Howells with Levitt Partners, who we know. We work pretty closely with Levitt Partners and the Caring Alliance, especially on all things like individual access services and patient access. And then Dr. Thomas Keene, who was a former advisor to HHS, both under the Biden and Trump administration, which I find very interesting, especially as we have always sort of historically said interoperability is a bipartisan effort. I am curious to see what happens and if interoperability continues to be supported as a bipartisan effort. We obviously still don't know what is to come for ONC. I think most of us are, anxiously waiting on the edge of our chair. But what we do know is that, CommonWell is a designated QHIN. We continue to support this work at the federal level for data sharing. We recognize there's always going to be shifts in the industry. That's inevitable, but our mission and vision remains the same. So we're still dedicated to making sure that the data is accessible and able to be moved, and now partnering with members to make that even better. So I think that's it. Any last things?
Yeah. A day at a time with all of the ONC ASTP things, just a day at a time while we continue to put our heads down and, move forward with Interop. So wonderful. So thank you for joining us for our second episode. We will be back in 2 weeks at noon. Topic is to be determined. So stay tuned on that, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.